Well, blessings, everybody. I'm Dale, and I thank you so much for continuing to study with us. Today's lesson is very, very important, and I encourage you to read this passage out of Second Chronicles. We've been looking at the whole story, so you know a little bit about what's happening right here. This is just really a very sad portion of the scripture. It's a very serious warning to us, so I really encourage you to read it, study it, and give heed to it. Here's what's going on. Jehoiada, the priest, we find out, lives to a ripe old age of 130 years old, and then he dies. And he's buried in the city of David among the kings because he has done well. The high priest was buried among the kings. He had done well in relationship to Israel, to God, and to the house of God. He was faithful. But after the death of Jehoiada, the officials of Judah came and they bowed down to the king. Now, the king is Joash. Remember that? And Joash listened to them. Now, remember, Jehoiada had rescued Joash, had been literally a father to him. But now he had died. The officials come and they bow before the king. And apparently they were saying things to the king. Here is what happened. They began to abandon the house of the Lord. They abandoned the God of their fathers, and they began to serve the Asherim and the idols. They went totally against God. And so when God's representative, the chief priest, the high priest, when he died, with just a little bit of time, the sweet words of the leadership of Judah had come to the king and totally led him in an opposite direction. Because of this, wrath came upon Judah and Jerusalem because of their guilt. Still, God sent prophets to them to bring them back to the Lord. And the prophets testified against them. In other words, the prophets said, y'all got to straighten up. You got to quit doing this stuff. But they would not listen. Then one day the Spirit of the Lord came upon Zechariah. And Zechariah was the son of Jehoiada, the priest who had just died. He stood before the people and he spoke forth the truth of the Most High God. And here's what he said to him. He said, why do you transgress the commandments of the Lord and you do not prosper? Why are you going against what God has told you to do? That's the reason you're not prospering. And he says, because you have forsaken the Lord, he has also forsaken you. So he's standing before the people. Then it said that they conspired against him. I suspect that's the leaders of Judah as well as the people, that they were furious because of what the prophet had said. So they conspired against him, and then the king commanded them to stone him to death in the court of the house of the Lord. I just think about this. Joash would have grown up with Zechariah. They would have been contemporaries. And here he is in just a brief period of time, listening to the wrong people, his eyes and ears and his whole heart totally turned away from God. There is tremendous deception in listening to the wrong folks. Then the scripture tells us, Joash the king did not remember the kindness which his father Jehoiada had done. And Joash the king literally murdered Jehoiada's son. Zechariah, as he died, said, may the Lord see and avenge. We'll see more about that later, okay? But for now, let's just keep this in mind. May our mind, our eyes, our ears, everything about us be upon the Lord. Do not listen to the flattery of men, and don't listen to your own PR, okay? Don't get too serious about it and believe everything like that in that way. But keep your eyes and keep your focus and keep your attention upon the Lord, lest we be deceived in like manner. I thank you for being with me, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.